Greetings and good morning, everyone. And to you, Sir Gabor. So, EEM115 content and pedagogy for mother tongue. So, before we start our discussion and the activities that we have, let's pray first and followed by national anthem and PNC March.
Panginoon, salamat po sa panibagong araw na ito upang kami ay matuto. Buksan niyo po ang aming isipan upang lubos na maintindihan ang aming mga aralin. Bigyan niyo din po ang aming mga guro, mga magulang at mga kamag-aral ng lakas ng katawan at isipan na masigit naming kailangan sa araw-araw sa panahong ito. Ang lahat po ng ito ay aming dinadalangin sa iyo, aming Diyos Ama. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Ikaw na ang sandigan ng mga pangarap naming kabataan. Pinto ay nabuksan, pag-asa ay sumilay upang tunguhin ang magandang bukas. Pamantasan ng kabuyaw, dangal ng bayan, pangalan ay tanghal at hikaitan niya. PNC, tanghal ng kabuyaw, mabuhay ka magpakailanman. Kahit aking lisanin, mananatiling tapat ang damdamin. Pagmamahal at karunungan, taas noo ang pag-awit kanino man. Sa simula ay ikaw na ang sandigan ng mga pangarap naming kabataan. Pinto ay nabuksan, pag-asa ay sumilay upang tunguhin ang magandang bukas. Pamantasan ng kabuyaw, dangal ng bayan, pangalan ay tanghal at ikaiita niya. PNC, dangal ng kabuyaw, mabuhay kang magpakailanman. PNC, dangal ng kabuyaw, mabuhay ka. PNC, magpakailanman.
PNC Mission, a premier educational institution of higher learning developing globally competitive and value-laden professionals and leaders instrumental to community development and nation building. PNC vision as an institution of higher learning, PNC is committed to equip individuals with knowledge, skills, and values that will enable them to achieve their professional goals and provide leadership and service to national development. PNC core values is a God-fearing institution respecting multi-faith of people. PNC adheres to the following core values: P for personal dignity, N for nurturing community, C for commitment of excellence. Here's the reporters for this week 11. Asuncion Claire Ann, Reyes Angelica, Segi Nicole Jare, and yours truly, Asansa Delby. Again, good morning everyone. I hope na you are okay at nakakain na kayo ng umagahan, no? For sure. And sana kinakaya pa natin ang lahat ng mga activities. And before ko sabihin yung pinaka-title ng aming discussion, please manood po kayo hanggang dulo dahil meron pong activity, no? Hindi ko alam kung saan ilalagay, gitna ba or dulo, basta antabayanan nyo yung activity na yon at sobrang matutuwa kayo dahil pag napanood nyo yon, no? Kailangan nyo mag-send mag-send sa akin ng video, no? And may premium yon, no? May premium yon. Sinasabi ko sa inyo may premium yun. Kaya manood kayo hanggang dulo, please. And thank you, no? Nagpapasalamat na po ako ngayon sa inyo dahil tinapos niyo yung discussion namin.
Mother tongue policy and mother tongue practice. Learning objectives. Learners should be able to understand what is mother tongue policy and mother tongue practice. Number 2, learners must be able to identify the Philippines language in education policies 1900s to 2009. Number 3, learners must be able to identify the 8 best for early grade reading in multilingual context. The mother tongue policy for primary education or teacher education is often perceived as difficult when many languages are present. It also often difficult to unite groups without a common cultural heritage or language, but a flexible language and education policy and pedagogical approaches that support the linguistic repertoire are best. They could empower people and enable their participation. Mother tongue education can be used for knowledge construction that values the culturally specific knowledge rather than standardized often English curriculums. Ito daw yung sa pagitan ng child developments and their mother tongue na nalalaman ng bata na madedevelop yung kanilang skills sa 2 o 3 wika na magkaroon sila to have their deeper understanding on how they are going to form sentences, expressions, to make the use of a language, consistency, a fixed mindset on how they are going to communicate sa kung ano yung gusto nila or katangian nila, and this means na yung wika na pinili nila kung sila ay nagsasalita, pinag-iisipan muna nila bago nila i-deliver yung kanilang sasabihin. The language provision in the 1987 Constitution of Republic of the Philippines, which are embodied in Article 14, Section 6 and 7, provide a legal basis for the various language policies that are being implemented in the country. Next is the provision are as follows. Section 6, the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. As it evolves, it shall be further developed and enriched on the basis of existing Philippine and other languages. Dito sa Section 6, ang wika ng Pilipinas or sa Filipino na de-develop ito yung dapat na i-promote, enrich yung kanilang pagbabasehan ng nag-e-exist na wika subject to provisions of law and the Congress may appropriate, ang pamahalaan ay dapat gumawa ng hakbang upang simulan at itaguyod ang paggamit ng Pilipino as a medium of official communication and as a language of instruction in the educational system. Section 7. For purposes of communication and instruction, the official languages of the Philippines are Filipino and until otherwise provided by law English. Section 7. Ang saligang batas na naguutos sa pamahalaan na gumawa na nagpapasimula at magpapanatili ng Pilipino as the medium of official communication and as a language of instruction in educational system. The Philippine Bilingual Education Policy or the PEP. Bilingual education is the Philippines is defined operationally as the separate use of Filipino and English as the media of instruction in specific subject areas. As embodied in the Dex Order Number 25, Filipino, changed into Filipino in 1987, shall be used as medium of instruction in social studies or social sciences, music, arts, physical education, home economics, practical arts, and character education. English, on the other hand, is allocated to science, mathematics, and technology subjects. The same subject allocation is provided to the 1987 Policy on Bilingual Education, which is disseminated through Department Order Number 52, Series 1987. This means that this bilingual education is defined na nahihiwalay or nahati na dapat gamitin ng Pilipino at English as a medium of the instruction kagaya daw ng social studies, social sciences, music, arts, physical education, home economics, practical arts, and character educations that the same subject allocation is provided in the policy on bilingual education. Policy is as follows. The policy on bilingual education aims at the achievement of competence in both Filipino and English at the national level through the teaching of both language and their use as media of instruction at all levels. The regional language shall be used as auxiliary languages in grade 1 to grade 2. The aspiration of the Filipino nation is to have its citizens possess skills in Filipino to enable them to perform their functions and duties in order to meet the needs of the country in the community of nations. The bilingual language policy in the country's education seeks to attain Filipino and English competence at national level through their use of media of instruction at all levels, and it also aims to communicate Filipino as a language that states to be used as auxiliary media of instruction language for literacy when needed. The goals of bilingual education policy shall be enhance learning through two languages to achieve quality education as called for by the 1987 Constitution. The goal of these bilingual programs is for students to develop language proficiency in two language by receiving instruction. Number 2, the propagation of Filipino as a language of literacy. Na ang pinaka-main highlight daw naman ito ay ang pangailangan na ma-develop yung kanilang literacy sa Filipino as a linguistic symbol of national unity and identity, and sa English naman ay language wider communication. The development of Filipino as a linguistic symbol of national unity and identity. It is connected is who we are as a people, to know how to speak Filipino, and a way for us a people to be united. The goals of the bilingual education policy shall be for the cultivation and elaboration of Filipino as language of scholarly discourse, that is to say, its continuing intellectualization and the maintenance of English as an international language for the Philippines and as a non-exclusive language of science and technology. Filipino and English shall be used as media of instruction. The use allocated to specific subjects in the curriculum as indicated in the Department Order Number 25 Series 1974 can be used to promote and teach the Filipino ideals, culture, and tradition which can be embedded for one's country, and it must become a tool used in the schooling of minds see the potential and importance of the national language. The regional languages shall be used as auxiliary media of instruction and as initial language for literacy where needed. Dito, kailangan daw gamitin na pantulong sa media yung pagtuturo to start of their learning na marunong silang bumasa at sumulat para sa kahit saan sila pumunta, ay yun ang kailangan nila. Filipino and English shall be taught as language subjects in all levels to achieve the goals of bilingual competence. Ang layunin daw nito ay yung bilingual competence ng Filipino at ang English ay panggagamit. Ian's competence in the use of both Filipino and English is one of the goals of the bilingual education policy, continuing improvement in the teaching of both languages, their use as media of instruction, and the specification of their functions in Philippine schooling shall be the responsibility of the whole educational system. Ito daw yung paggamit ng media of instruction na pinakadetalye or fully detailed na ang kanilang tungkulin ay nakakayahan ng paggamit ng Filipino at Ingles na ang pag-aaral nito ay that can be influence to the education. The department shall program funds for implementing the policy in such areas as materials, production and service training, compensatory and enrichment program for non-Tagalog's development of a suitable and standardized Filipino for classroom use and the development of appropriate evaluative instruments. So yun nga, nabanggit daw dito na kailangan ng sapat na gagamitin sa materials or may kasanayan sa pagdating sa training program na suitable para dun sa non-Tagalogs na madedevelop sa classroom na gagamitin and dun sa development implementing the policy. Executive Order Number 335 on August 25, 1988, then President Corazon Aquino signed Executive Order Number 335 enjoining all department, bureaus, office, agencies, instrumentalities of the government to take such steps as are necessary for the purpose of using the Filipino language in official transactions, communications, and correspondence. So, ayun nga, Corazon Aquino take steps to enhance yung paggamit ng Filipino sa lahat ng official communications, transactions, and correspondence sa kanilang tanggapan, whether national or local. It assigned one or more personnel as may be necessary in every office to take charge of communications and correspondence written in Filipino.
The Commission on the Filipino Language, formerly Institute of Philippine/National Language, is ordered to formulate and implement programs and projects for the full and effective implementation of the objectives expressed in the Executive Order. Ang paggamit ng Filipino language ay official na sa lahat ng transaction, communications at correspondence. National language ng Philippines ay Filipino na naka-evolve dito sa Commission. Kaya it makes develop at pagyayamanin sa basis ng naunang Philippine languages at iba pang languages, communication at instruction. Ang purpose nito, kasama rin ang English, kalakip din ng executive order ng Constitution para sa pagpapatupad at pagpapatibay ng national language. The Language Policy of the Commission on Higher Education. In 1994, Republic Act No. 7722 creating the Commission on Higher Education, CHED, was signed. This act, which is known as the Higher Education Act of 1994, provides that the CHED shall be independent and separate from the DECS and attached to the office of the President for administrative purposes only. Its coverage shall be both in public and private institutions of higher education, as well as degree-granting programs in all post-secondary educational institutions, public and private. Philippines Language in Education Policies 1900 to 2009. 1901 Education Act No. 74, Monolingual Education Policy. U.S. President McKinley directs the Philippine Commission to establish a system of schools where English is the basis of all public school instruction, the establishment of which is deemed essential to the success of democracy, Dow 2014. Ayon kay Dow noong year 2014, si McKinley na United States President ay inutos sa Philippine Commission na mag-establish ng medium of instruction sa English sa mga public schools upang sa gayon ay makamit ang tagumpay ng demokrasy. Ipinagpatupad ng Department of Public Instruction ang English. Ito ay sistema ng public schools sa Pilipinas tulad ng mga itinayong normal school sa Manila na made in English ang batayan ng pagkatuto. Noong year 1947 ay ang normal school sa Pilipinas ay maraming professor sa college dahil sa tulong ng kabilang sa mga Republic Act na habang tumatagal ay lalo pa nakikilala ang schools at teachers na magagaling magturo ng English. Sila ay mga ganap na teachers or professor sa universities na ang mga colleges or students ay magtatagumpay at sang-ayon sa English language. 1937 and 1940 Executive Order Numbers 134 and 263. The 1935 Constitution adopts Tagalog as the national language in 1937. Executive Order Number 263 stipulated the teaching of Tagalog as a separate subject in primary, secondary, and teachers' colleges in both public and private schools. Ang Constitution noong year 1935 ay pinagtibay ang Tagalog language bilang pambansang wika noong year 1937. Ito ang steps toward the development at pagpapatibay ng national language na common bilang Filipino na Tagalog talaga ang pananalita. Nakabase rin sa native languages na Tagalog ang executive order na ang Tagalog ay official na language sa Pilipinas. Sinasabi sa Executive Order Number 263 na ino-authorize ang pagprint ng dictionary at grammar ng national language. Palagi rin ginagamit ang Tagalog language at itinuturo sa public and private schools sa Pilipinas, maging sa elementary, secondary, pati mga colleges na itinuturo sa iba't ibang subjects. 1957 Revised Educational Act. The Board of National Education provides for the use of vernacular languages as medium of instruction, MOI in grades 1 and 2, and auxiliary MOI in grades 3 and 4. English is introduced as a separate subject and MOI from grade 3 onwards. Tagalog or Filipino, adopted in 1959, becomes an auxiliary MOI in grades 5 and 6. Bernardo 2004. Ginamit bilang katutubong wika na Tagalog as medium of instruction sa grades 1 at 2. Ang National Education ang nag-provide nito, kaya ni-revise ang educational program na ito ay para umasenso ang multilingual na edukasyon at para din ma-observe na mabuti ang multilingual policy. Nang dahil sa native languages ay makakatulong ito sa susunod na grade levels, maging ang school system ay relevant pati ang necessary for learning ng students ay may isa sa alang-alang din gawa ng pag-decide ng Board of National Education. Effective ang medium of instruction sa teaching at learning na English at Tagalog. Kahit magkahiwalay na subjects ito, ang simula sa grade 3 pataas na inadapt noong year 1959. Tunay na pag-prepare rin ito para pag naging grade 5 and 6 na ang students, it will be part of emphasis ng all subjects para ma-achieve ang learning competencies ng mga students at require din na ang kalalabasan nito ay language improvement. 1973, DEC Department Order No. 9, Bilingual Education Policy. The Department of Education DEC adopts the Bilingual Education Policy BEP at all levels of schooling to develop bilingual competency in the use of both Filipino and English. Through the teaching of both languages as subject areas and as MOI, regional languages are used as auxiliary languages in grades 1 and 2. Ang bilingual education policy ay pinagtitibay ng DepEd para kahit anong grade level sa pag-aaral ay made-develop ang kakayahan ng mga students at ang kanilang competence sa pananalita ay mas magiging better pa. Mahahasa ang pagiging bilingual nila na makakapagsalita sila ng two languages na fluent talaga na Tagalog at English. Ang matututunan pa ng mga students ay English at Filipino na pananalita na ginagamit at napapag-aralan palagi. Ito ang wika na lalong paghuhusayan pa habang sila ay mga bata pa lang upang mahasa ang speaking in two different languages. Bilang medium of instruction, mas lalawak ang knowledge ng mga students sa lahat ng grade levels na gumamit o magsalita ng fluent, both Tagalog at English ang magiging wika nila. Maaring pang-regional wika rin ito upang makamit at upang matulungan ang grade 1 at grade 2 ng wika mula sa Tagalog at English. 1987, DECS Order No. 52. The Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, DECS, reiterates provisions in the BEP use of English as MOI in Science, English, and Mathematics, and Filipino, spelled Filipino after 1987. As MOI in Filipino, Social Studies, Character, Health, Work, and Physical Education at all levels of education. Regional languages remain auxiliary MOI, Castilla 2000, Decker and Young 2005. Ayon sa DECS, ang mga provision sa Bilingual Education Policy ay inulit nila na ang meaning nito ay Department of Education, Culture, and Sports or DECS na ipinahayag ni Castillo noong year 2000 na ang ginagamit dito ay English speaking bilang medium of instruction sa apat na subjects na kabilang na dito ang Science, English, Mathematics at Filipino. Pero noong year 1987 sa pahayag nila Decker and Young ay binaybay sa speaking in Tagalog naman dahilan ang mga citizens sa Pilipinas o students sa atin ay Tagalog at English ang pagsasalita o ang ating kinabihas na Tagalog sa speaking. Ginamit ang Filipino speaking bilang pagkamamayang Pilipino noong taong 1987 na medium of instruction sa provisions na ng Bilingual Education Policy sa lahat ng grade level sa edukasyon upang magkaroon ng ugnayan ang English at Tagalog na pananalita at makilala pa ang two languages sa iba't ibang grade levels o iba pang religion at bansa. Kabilang na dito ang PE, Work, Health, Character, at Social Studies na subject sa lahat ng grade levels na student sa iba't ibang religion gamit ang mga wika na English at Tagalog na nakasanayan na ng mga Pilipino. 2009 DepEd DO number 74, Multilingual Education Policy. The Department of Education DepEd institutionalizes the child's MT as primary MOI in all subject areas, from preschool until at least grade 3, followed by Filipino and English introduced as separate subjects no earlier than grade 2. The teaching of MT as subject MTS begins in grade 1. Filipino and English become the MOI from the secondary level onwards. Ayon sa DepEd, isinama o kinabilang ang mother tongue na subject para sa batang students sa lahat ng subjects na itinuturo bilang medium of instruction ng mas maaga simula preschool, grade 1, grade 2 at grade 3 na ang Filipino at English ay dapat na nakasama sa lahat ng naka-include na subjects. Ito ang ginamit na medium of instruction na pagtuturo sa preschool o grade 1 pa lamang ng mga students. Kasama na ang mother tongue na English at Filipino in teaching and learning. Kaya tinawag ito na multilingual education policy sa kanilang pag-aaral noong taong 2009 upang ang pagtuturo ng mother tongue ay makasanayan pa at maging ang purpose nito ay maihanda sa darating na next grade levels na kabilang sa mga subjects na mayroon ang grade 2. Hindi nawawala ang English at Filipino as medium of instruction sapagkat ito ang ginagamit na wika at pinahahalagahan ang iba't ibang wika in teaching mother tongue as medium of instruction in English and Tagalog and students learning as well. Mother tongue practice. Mother tongue-based multilingual education MTB-MLE policy in the Philippines involves implementation of local mother tongues as the language of instruction in kindergarten to year 3, K to 3, with the official languages Filipino and English being introduced as the language of instruction after grade 3. Previously, the early years of schooling used Filipino and English as the language of instruction, with local languages being used to assist teachers and students in the classroom, while a very small number of schools previously implemented MTB to MLE. Many schools and teachers are now learning how to use a local mother tongue as the language of instruction, and in the coming years, this will be taken up by more schools, teaching a wider variety of languages. Ang Mother Tongue-Based Multilingual Education or MTB or MTB and MLE policy sa Pilipinas ay involve ang pagpapatupad ng local mother tongues bilang language of instruction sa kindergarten hanggang grade 3. While official languages na Filipino at English ay pinaalam o pinag-aralan bilang language of instruction pagkatapos ng grade 3, na ang mga bata ay natututong mabuti at mabilisan in a language na naiintindihan nila agad. Na-enjoy nila ang pag-aaral pati feel nila na nasa bahay sila din. Ang kanilang self-esteem ay nag-i-increase. Ang mga batang students ay prioritize ang national or official language, habang binibigkas nila ang mother tongue na Filipino at English ay naglilink ito sa goals ng education system at pag-support sa language proficiency. Balikan natin ang nakaraang taon na early years sa pag-aaral na ginagamit ang Filipino at English bilang language of instruction, kasama ang local languages na ginagamit upang ma-assist ang teachers at students sa classroom, habang ang ibang paaralan na kaunti lang ay nasa previously implemented ng MTB to MLE. Sa ngayon, madaming paaralan at teachers ang nag-aaral ngayon kung paano gamitin ang local mother tongue as language of instruction. Pati sa mga next at susunod na mga taon ay gagamitin ito sa mga schools, spreading to teach a wider different kind of languages.
Hello, activity muna tayo. Mag-fresh pa muna tayo, no? I hope na nakakasabay pa kayo sa dinidiscuss nila sa inyo. And activity muna tayo. Ano-ano muna tayo ng utak natin ngayong araw. And the activity na ipapagawa ko sa inyo is read the Philippine dialect phrases with a twist. Hindi lang siya basta babasahin, no? Kailangan may gagawin kayo, no? And yung makasampu dito na magpapasa sa akin, no, personal message pa sa akin ng video is exempted ito sa quiz, no? And kung sino yung pinakamagaling ay merong premyo sa akin. And yun nga, the instruction ng aming activity is may ipa-flash akong word, phrases word, pero meron na siyang ibig sabihin nun and kung anong language nun. Ang gagawin nyo lang is babasahin nyo lang siya. Pero, no, may ipapakita kong emoji. Bawat emoji, gagawin, parang i-act nyo siya. No? Kailangan magaling kayo dito mag-acting. Para mapili ko kayo kung sino yung pinakamagaling mag-acting, no? May coffee sa akin, iced coffee sa akin, no? So, for example dito, kaya't ko nga arakupin ka. Ibig sabihin, I want to hug you in Ilocano language. Pero, ang napuntang emoji is sad. Ang gagawin nyo, ito, kaya't ko nga arakupin ka. Yun, parang ganon. Ulit, kung naiintindihan nyo ba, everyone? Naiintindihan nyo po ba? Ulit, may papakita ko sa inyong phrases word, no? Na iba't ibang lingwahe, and kailangan nyo yon basahin with emotion. Kung anong mapunta or i-flash kong emoji dyan is gagawin ninyo. Kung masaya man yan, or nakakaiyak, galit, or feeling annoyed, ganon, gagawin nyo pa din, no? For example, ulit, no? Sa Ilocano language, kaya't ko nga arakupin ka. Meaning, I want to hug you. And napuntang emoji is sad. No? Kita nyo naman yan, sad, sad. So, ito, kaya't ko nga arakupin ko. Yan. Pero, pag because niyan is maayos, no? Hindi yung basta sabihin lang. Okay? So, are you ready, guys? Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes, are you ready? And the number 1 is Ilocano language. Ay ayatin ka unay. Meaning, I love you so much. Ano kaya ang emoji or feelings ang maipa-flash ngayon? Let's see. Oh, angry. Sige nga, everyone. Ay ayatin ka unay. Meaning, I love you so much. So, gawin nyo na. And, videohan nyo na ang inyong sarili habang ito ay ginagawa. Yeah. Okay na? Okay. So, the next one is Bicol language. Pagal na ako. I'm tired. Ano kaya emoji ang papakita? Let's see. Happy! So, sige nga, paano nyo may express yung pagal na ako na meaning is I'm tired ng happy. Okay? So, let's go! Okay na? Okay. So, the third one is language of Pangasinan language or Pangasinense. Agtakakabat. I don't know you. No? Oh, taray, I don't know you. Agtakakabat. So, ano kaya ang magiging emoji or feelings na ipapakita dyan? Let's see. Scared. Oh, sige nga. Everyone, no? Kung kaya niyo talaga mag-acting, dito niyo na ipakita sa video na ito. Agtakakabat, I don't know you. Oh, sa Pangasinan language. She's scared, ha? Pero patakot na pagbigkas, no? With acting, ganon. So, okay na ba? Okay. So, here, Kapampangan language, Kapampangan. So, agyo kung akong dili. Agyo kung akong dili, I can buy myself. No? Agyo kung akong dili, I can buy myself. So, the emoji is sleepy. Guys, kaya nyo yan. Alam ko yan. So, kaya nyo yan, guys. Kaya nyo yan i-act. Or yan, yung paano siya bigkasin, ha? Maayos. So, the last one, no? Waray language. Pasaylo ako. pasaylo ako. Meaning, forgive me. Ano kayang emotion na? Yan, last na yan. Last na activity na to. And let's see. Hurt. Oh, nasaktan. Hurt. Yun nga. Bigkasin niyo siya ng nasasaktan, no? Waray language. Pasaylo ako. Pasayloa ako. Pasayloa ako. Bigas ng maayos. Great! Napakagaling ninyo agad, no? Palakpakan everyone. And, ayun. I hope na nag-enjoy kayo sa activity ito. And nabuhayan kayo. And please, tapusin natin tong video na to. Ano? Video namin. Dahil may quiz kaming ibibigay. And dito sa activity na pinagawa ko, isend nyo sa akin yung video ng 5 na pinagawa kong activity. No, isesend sa akin personally. Huwag na lang sa GC. No, personally, yun na lang isend sa akin. And paunahan ito, 10 students lang ang kukunin ko, no, na magiging exempted sa quiz namin. And pipili ako ng isa na magkakaroon ng iced coffee. And di ko alam kung kailan tayo ulit mag-meet up, pero yes, thank you everyone at I hope na natuwa kayo sa activity ito, no? And thank you. Now, let's proceed to the discussion again. Let's call Ma'am Angelica Reyes to discuss. Thank you.
Let's proceed to the 8 best practices for early grade reading in multilingual contexts. Best practice number 1. Engage in a language mapping. This exercise is designed to capture the languages that students and teachers predominantly speak if a language policy doesn't exist. This mapping can help governments make a choice for language of instruction that reflects the languages mostly spoken in and outside of school. Whether teachers can speak, read, and write the language of instruction, this will help you identify teacher needs and better plan for trainings. Bukod pa dito, needs for distribution of resources and materials, this will help you better plan materials distribution according to predominant languages spoken in the school. Best practice number 2. Ensure the chosen languages of instruction is standardized. As often the case, there are many dialects of the same language. For example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, there are dozens of different versions of what is called Swahili. In a perfect world, we would write materials in every dialect. But in practice, that's not realistic. That's why it is important to identify and standardize an orthography. This can be done in a few steps. First is gather information and existing documents on the language. Number 2, identify recommended orthography. 3, development a scope and sequence of phonemes and grammatical particles per language. Ngunit meron daw ilang dialekto ng parehong wika. So, yung example nga sa Democratic Republic of Congo is may pagkakaiba-iba daw kung ano daw yung kilala bilang sawali. So, sa perpektong kalagayan daw ng pagsusulat ay mapagkukunan daw lahat yon ng isang dialekto. Pero sa katotohanan daw ay mahalaga daw munang kilalanin yung mga gawain o pamantayan sa sistema at sa pagsulat. Best practice number 3. Understand the language elements and structure. Even if aren't a linguistic, understand the language will help you determine how to most effectively teach reading skills in this language. Sinasabi dito na kahit hindi ka daw linguistic, ang pag-aaral daw ng wika ay mahalaga. Magbibigay daan sa'yo na pumili ka ng pinakamabisang paraan sa pagtuturo sa pagbasa. Kaalaman sa wikang iyon. Best practice number 4. Develop context-sensitive approach to instruction. Using the information gathered, reading program design can now begin. To do this, you have to determine the approach to read instruction. In a multilingual context, a good model for reading instruction depends on several elements including the language structure and teachers' past experience, how they can learn to read, in what language, how they taught reading in the past. Determine how to best prepare students for reading in 2 or more languages often. Students in this context are expected to eventually learn to read in 1 or more other languages, often an international languages. Depending on the country's language policy, this could be done using the bilingual approach or the transition into another language. So sabi nga doon, gamit daw yung impormasyon na kalap, ang pagbabasa daw ng disenyo ng programa ay maaari ngayon na magsimula. Upang gawin ito, kailangan daw pumili ng diskarte sa pagtuturo sa pagbabasa. Sa isang multilingual daw, ang isang matagumpay na modelo ng edukasyon sa pagbabasa ay nakasalalay daw sa ilang mga kadahilanan bilang mga variable tulad ng istrukturang pangwika. At ang naunang karanasan ng mga guro, karanasan ang wikang kanilang sinasalita or kung paano sila natutong magbasa at iba pa. Nauna na silang nagturo sa pagbabasa. So, doon, tiyakin daw ang mga mainam na paraan upang maihanda ang mga bata daw. So, tiyakin daw na ang mga mainam na paraan upang daw maihanda yung mga bata sa pagbabasa is dalawa o sa mga sitwasyong ito ay madalas na hinihiling sa mga mag-aaral na kalaunan ay naging marunong bumasa at sumulat sa isa or higit pang mga wika. Karaniwan ay isang international dialect. Depende daw sa pambansang wika na ginagamit ang bilingual na diskarte o yung trilingual na diskarte. Ito ay lumilipat sa ibang bansa. Best practice number 5. Develop a realistic and systematic scope and sequence. Feed in your scope and sequence of phonemes and grammatical particles into the sequence of reading skills you want students to master. This comprehensive document will help you determine the pace at which want students to be acquiring different skills and content. Remember, language structure and complexity will influence this pace. So, sinasabi dito na maaari din daw gamiting papel upang maitatag yung rate kung saan daw yung pagnanais natin sa student natin na matuto ng iba't ibang talento at yung nilalaman. So, ang pagiging komplikado daw ng structure ng wika is mabilis daw ma-adapt na isang student or mabilis makaka-apekto yung bilis na pag-iisip nila dahil sa skills na kanilang alam. Best practice number 6. Develop language and context appropriate student text. You're finally on the fun stop writing student books. A few tips to keep in mind when writing in different languages. First is don't simplify translate books from one language to another. Second, when writing the decodable, make sure text respect the scope and sequence of phonemes and high frequency morpheme or word list. Number 3 is ensure themes are accessible and familiar to students. So, yung mga kaunti lang tip na tatlo na dapat tandaan kapag nagsusulat ng iba't ibang wika is, huwag daw basta-basta magsalin ng wika mula sa isang wika patungo pa sa isang wika. So, kapag daw nagsusulat ng decodable, tiyakin daw iginagalang ng teksto, ang saklaw at pagkakasunod-sunod ng ponema o mga listahan ng mga salita. Best practice number 7, develop appealing, quality, and vocabulary-rich reading materials. Develop vocabulary-rich like big books or supplementary reading materials in local language to cultivate a love of reading and to build oral language. Big books are often the sole vehicle that children in this context have for read aloud to and exposed to rich vocabulary in the language they understand. So, ayun nga, yung lumilikha ng mga mapagkukunan ng malakas na vocabulary, tulad daw yung malalaking libro o karagdagang pagbabasa ng mga lokal na wika sa bumubuo ng mga mahihilig magbasa at pagbutihin daw na yung wika sa pagsasalita ay malalaking libro ay madalas na tanging medium daw na ginagamit ng mga bata. So, ang sitwasyong ito daw ay nangangailangan sa pagbabasa ng malakas at pagkakalantad sa malawak na vocabulary sa isang wika or language ay familiar sa kanila. Last is best practice number 8. Address sensitivities around language of instruction. It is essential to bring up language sensitivities and perceptions of the language chosen for instruction in activities like trainings, campaigns, or sensitivization events. Address these issues head-on rather than letting them crop up later as excuses for resistance to implementation. So, napakahalaga daw talakayin ng sensitivity sa wika. So, ang mga opinion daw tungkol sa wikang ginagamit or yung pagsasanay sa mga kampanya ay harapin daw yung mga direktang problema nito. Sa kalaunan daw is pwede daw siya mag-excuses para sa salungat sa pagpapatupad ng wikang ginagamit. At dito nagtatapos ang aming report. Sana ay may naunawaan kayo or naintindihan niyo yung pag-explain namin ng bawat topic namin. And maraming salamat. Sana ay mapanood ninyo lahat ito.